Hey, thanks for taking the time to look at our version of the Neon Curiosity Lounge. I'm here with
Danielle James.
And I'm Morgan Crook, and we have, for this feature,
10 neon tricks in 10 neonish minutes. Hey everybody, DJ here with your first neon tip. It involves pattern making, and I really love this brown paper. You can find it pretty much everywhere in 3-foot rolls, and a simple Sharpie will just make those lines super easy to see, especially through the dreaded screen. But what happens when you have the wrong line and the wrong curve and you don't want to mess it up? Say I might get confused by that line. The silver Sharpie is here to help. And it basically just makes everything go away. Which, I mean, who doesn't want that right now?
second tip is using a good file. Not just having a good file and maintaining a good file, but also practicing with it a lot will help make sure that you get nice square ends on your glass, which is far easier to work with than having a jaggedy end. A few years ago, I switched to using these diamond files and have found that they've worked really, really good on the harder lead-free glass that we're using these days.
What about the bastard file?
What about it?
It's cheap, easy to find, and you get to say the word bastard.
And actually, when these are nice and fresh and sanded or ground down, I found that they worked out really good on lead glass. Maybe this is a little bit better on lead-free, maybe that's best on lead.
You decide.
And practice.
Tip number 3, sharpening your bastard file. You'll need a grinder, safety glasses, no baggy clothes, hair tied back, and hopefully a safety protector on the actual grinder. What you're gonna do is hold with your right hand very firmly and guide with your left hand along. Now you're ready to cut some glass.
We were talking before about having a nice square end and put square ends to square ends together on the glass, and how much more likely that makes it for you to have a good seal, which is very important. So, if you end up with a seal that's not square, a couple options. One, you can take a piece of hot glass and wipe it off. That takes some skills. Another way to go about it is simply cut it off with a pair of scissors. So what you want to do is just heat the part that you're going to take off. Let's say like that, and you just take the scissors and you just trim it. We were talking a minute ago about having nice square ends and how that was helpful when you're making a straight seal rather than trying to seal to something that's jagged. Even sometimes when you do have square ends, you can have the glass position so it's a little too far that way and you don't see that it's on straight. Sometimes your hands just move a little bit and you end up getting a pinhole in here. One way you find out you got a pinhole is you blow into it, and you can see right here, there's the pinhole. Now the problem with blowing into it when you find the hole, we're going to go back up to the fires, is every time you blow into it, you're cooling that edge right there. And every time you blow into it and cool it, you're heating the rest of it time and time again, and now you're working on having a big gooey mess with one cold spot, which is stopping it from going together. So, if you have this problem, quit blowing right after you find it the first time and visually look for it. Mainly that looks like a pretty good seal, except there's a hole in it. One thing that you can do is, if you let it solidify a little bit, is I'll keep a piece of tubulation glass with a tip pulled on it. Sometimes you can carefully melt the glass in and fill the hole in like that and work it in. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't work. But the best thing to do is avoid a hole or fix it early by stopping blowing, heating and gathering more, and you can work it out and it'll be a nice seal. You can save it that way. This next tip is about marking glass. So using the ribbon burner here, I mark the glass different than I do when I'm doing a normal double back or right angle. Whenever I'm doing a double back or right angle or something like that, I'll always mark it on the inside of the glass. You're making 2 or 3 marks, whatever your preference is there. I always mark it, bending this to the inside. So I've got one here, I can make the next one here, and I'd be bending it back that way. That all reminds me where to put more heat on the back side of the glass, which way to be pre-bending while it's in the air and I'm on my way to the table. But the other thing, the important tip here, is that I always end up putting the China marker pointing at there where the heat goes. So I've oriented myself. So now I go heat them up in the ribbon burner over here. I come back. I don't, since there's so many marks on here, I know exactly where to place it like that. It goes there, and I can twist it into shape like it needs. So try marking your glass like that. See if it helps you. For the next tip, we're going to talk about the last thing that we're doing in making a good piece of neon is tip the unit off after you've processed it. You have to do a good job here. You can turn all that work into trash in an instant without doing it. You need a couple good tools. First, do not use a hand torch. This is a tipping torch, and you can see how much different they are, okay? Next thing you need is you need a heavy weight to hold the neon down with. You're going to be pulling hard on this to pull the tip off well. We're going to use this little tubulation tip as our example here. What we want to end up with is an even tip off. So it's going to look like that in the end. Can't make that perfect. Yours is going to have a little glass coming up here, but in essence we want the same thickness all the way across there. So how do we get the same thickness? We heat it evenly all the way across. Put glass down here. As soon as it starts to move, take the torch off and move it away and pull as hard as we can. Then we come back and heat on the thin side, and you end up with a nice tip off like that. You can see that it's pretty even through there. It doesn't have a sharp point at the end, so you're not going to crack it off if it's going into a spring housing or something like that. That's basically what you want to end up with. So our next trick is about servicing ground fault transformers. That's harder to do with electronic transformers because not only do they have ground fault circuit, they also have open circuit protection. So in a case like this, you're working on a sign, whether it's a beer sign or anything with electronic on it, turn the thing on and it's flashed 3 times and then turns off. How do you figure out if the problem's in the neon or if it's in the transformer? I like trying to work with the transformer first because that lets me solve that problem and then move on to diagnosing a problem in the neon, which can be more complicated. So you hook it up to the transformer, making sure, and on this end, you can see that these are all different lengths. The ground is the longest one, the hot's the shortest one, so if it does get jerked, the first thing that comes off is the hot, again, making it a little bit safer. So what we did is we turned it on, flashed. What I need to do now is test the transformer. So be careful when you're doing this. It is moderately dangerous. Turn the power off. Disconnect both of the leads. What you end up needing to do is holding the lead down solidly, because you need to have one hand free and one to turn it on with. So what you do now is put those together, turn the power on, okay? The transformer's staying on now because it's a complete circuit. Now we can move it apart a little bit and see that there's an arc there, so we know the transformer's putting out power. Transformer goes into open circuit mode after this, which is why you have to have power off, touch together, turned on, and we know the transformer's good. That lets us move on to figuring out where the problem is in the neon, and that makes servicing electronic transformers a whole lot easier.
Hey everybody, DJ here with tip number 9, about budgets and backgrounds.
Different backgrounds cost different amounts of money.
The Cadillac right now and everything that's trendy seems to be the skeletal sign, and we all know that there's installation fees involved in that, and that can be a little bit of a nightmare. So, number 1, we've got the plexiglass background, where you can still see the brick wall. You also see all of the guts going on, but that's just part of it. We like to offer that to people who really want a skeletal sign but might be moving next year or don't know if their business is going to be in the same spot. If someone's dirt poor and they don't know what kind of background they want, sometimes you got to go with the pallet wood background because you can find that literally anywhere. Take it apart, you have a free background. Here we have a little bit more fancy. It's a nice treated plywood that has a spray painted metal finish, and then it's got actual vinyl lettering and sexy lady added. And then we put neon on top of that just to give it some accent. So it's not the entire thing that gets neon, it's just little bits. And then we have Stay Golden here, which is a nice silhouette sign that has a black background that would be wonderful on a black wall. It would look just like a skeletal sign. You would never see the background. And then down here we have some kind of weird arts and crafts extra credit, but if you really love this kind of backlit logo that's pretty detailed, again, you can go in with a CNC router, in this case a Dremel, and carve in all of those details and then just pick up the highlights behind the plexiglass, and it makes a pretty great sign. We can make you whatever you want, just depending on what kind of budget you have.
Tip number 10, support your neon community. How can you do that?
Advocate for neon preservation.
Research local neon.
Look up a local historical society.
Take a class.
Join the many Facebook groups.
Support neon artists.
Give neon as a gift.
Commission neon yourself or just buy a t-shirt.
Go to a neon exhibition. Bring your friends.
Thank y'all very much. Special thanks to Ventex,
Glass,
to Nate Schaefer,
and Neon Speaks.
Thank you everybody for watching this video.
Bye y'all.